How many times have you explained yourself to someone who had already decided who you are? Think about that for a moment. How many conversations have you replayed in your head? How many messages have you rewritten before sending? How many nights have you spent trying to find the perfect words to make someone finally understand your intentions? Maybe you've tried to explain why you left, why you stayed, why you changed, why you decided to set boundaries, why you chose a different path from everyone around you, why you stopped accepting things that no longer aligned with your values. And yet, despite all your explanations, some people still refuse to understand. At first, you probably thought the problem was communication. Maybe if you explained it better. Maybe if you were more patient. Maybe if you gave them more details. Maybe then they would finally see things from your perspective. But what if the problem was never your explanation? What if the real problem is that some people don't want to understand? This is one of the hardest truths a person can accept. Not everyone wants clarity. Not everyone wants truth. Not everyone wants to see your side of the story. Some people have already made up their minds. And once they do, every explanation becomes another opportunity for them to misunderstand you. The Stoics understood this over 2,000 years ago, and today, their wisdom may be more relevant than ever. We live in a world obsessed with validation. People constantly explain themselves. At work, in relationships, on social media, within their own families. Many spend years trying to control how others perceive them, trying to prove they are good enough, trying to prove they are worthy, trying to prove they deserve respect, trying to prove they made the right decision. And without realizing it, they give away something priceless: their peace of mind. Every explanation requires energy. Every attempt to convince someone drains your attention. Every effort to change another person's perception takes time away from building your own life. And eventually, you become exhausted. Not because life is difficult, but because you're fighting battles that were never yours to fight. Epictetus taught that freedom begins when we stop depending on things outside our control. Think about that. Can you control what another person thinks about you? No. Can you control how they interpret your actions? No. Can you control their assumptions, expectations, or judgments? Of course not. Yet millions of people spend their lives trying. They explain, they defend, they justify, they argue, they prove. And then they wonder why they feel emotionally drained. It's because they are carrying a burden that no human being was ever meant to carry. The burden of managing other people's opinions. Imagine trying to control the weather. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm and demanding that the wind change direction. No matter how hard you try, it won't happen. That's exactly what it feels like when you try to control how people see you. No amount of explaining can force understanding. No amount of defending can force respect. No amount of proving can force acceptance. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. As Emperor of Rome, he was constantly criticized. Every decision he made was judged. Every action was questioned. Every success had critics. Every failure had spectators. Yet he rarely focused on changing people's opinions. Instead, he focused on something much more important: his character, his actions, his principles. Because Marcus Aurelius knew something most people never learn. You do not need to convince the world. You only need to remain faithful to your values. This is where many people become trapped. They confuse being understood with being valuable. They believe that if someone finally understands their intentions, they will finally feel at peace. But peace does not come from being understood. Peace comes from understanding yourself. It comes from knowing who you are even when others misunderstand you. It comes from trusting your decisions even when others disagree. It comes from respecting yourself enough to stop begging for validation. What many people don't realize is that constantly explaining yourself changes you. Little by little, you begin editing your personality. You become more careful with your words, more cautious with your decisions, more afraid of disappointing others. You start walking on eggshells around certain people, not because you've done something wrong, but because you've become accustomed to defending your existence. Think about how exhausting that is. Imagine having to justify every choice you make, every dream you pursue, every boundary you set, every change you decide to make in your life. Eventually, you stop living freely. You begin living strategically. You stop asking, "What do I truly want?" and start asking, "How will they react?" That is not freedom. That is emotional captivity. And many people remain trapped there for years. The Stoics warned against this. They understood that a person who constantly seeks approval will never find peace, because approval is unpredictable. One day people praise you. The next day, they criticize you. One day, they support your decisions. The next day, they question them. If your confidence depends on their reactions, your confidence will always be fragile.